Hello and welcome to the Live Streamer Backstage podcast. I'm Alec Johnson and this is a weekly show in which I interview fellow live streamers to understand how they're using live streaming as a tool in their business and to discover the tech, the gear and the software that they use to produce great live shows. My guest today is Katie Fawkes, Director of Marketing at Ecamm Network. And if you've listened to this podcast before, you'll know that I am an Ecamm superfan. And that's because I would not be doing what I'm doing without it, both literally in this podcast right now, but also in a general sense professionally. The software has been such an enabler for me, helping me in so many ways, in so many areas of business. Now, anyone who uses Ecamm Live will tell you that one of its best features is the community that has built around it. It is such a welcoming, inclusive and supportive place for us all to grow together. But this has not happened by accident, though. Now, I'm very lucky to be a moderator in that group and I get a sneak peek behind the scenes. And so I can tell you just what a driving force Katie is in fostering this community spirit. She is so caring about all of the community members and is always looking for new ways to help Ecamm users reach their goals and use video, marketing and live streaming as a tool to grow their business. This is being clearly evident in all of the events that they put on, such as the recent Leap into Podcasting, a free virtual conference to help folks start their podcast. This wasn't just a one-off though. Katie and the team are always coming up with new, fun, but crucially highly educational events to serve the community in this way. Then, of course, there is all of the other live streams and video content they put on for the Ecamm Network in the Ecamm Network YouTube channel. Again, providing community members the information they need to thrive. It really is impossible to spend any amount of time in the Ecamm community and not appreciate just how special it really is. I'm sure there are many other companies out there who are watching on with a great deal of envy, wishing they had the same level of engagement around their product and trying to figure out Ecamm's secret magic sauce. I'm not convinced it will be ever replicated, to be honest, but let's try to at least figure out some of the ingredients in the conversation today. It's my pleasure to welcome one of the nicest people in the live streaming community, if not the world, Katie Fawkes. Hey, Katie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun to be here. I love getting to be on the other side of interviews. Great.
Yeah, it's always weird when you're streaming and then you're on somebody else's show. It's a different vibe to it.
I know. Yeah, I'm like, wait, I don't need to touch my computer at all. I can just stare into the camera.
With all the
it's
buttons.
Great. Good. Perfect. I am in your capable hands.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about Ecamm so much on my YouTube channel. In the podcast, it's always a feature of the conversation with everybody that I have on here. So I doubt that there's people listening that haven't heard of Ecamm, but perhaps you can tell us a little bit about sort of your journey into Ecamm and sort of how you came to be working for them and your sort of background before that as well.
Sure. So hi everyone. I am a marketing professional that started off wanting to work in the world of publishing. I come into marketing through a writing background, and I say this on almost every stream that I do, I am the person who would have traded just about anything to avoid being on camera or on video in any way, or on audio. I loved being able to really spend the time to dive deep, do a ton of research, and be able to correct myself before I ever released anything. So recovering perfectionist over here. I think I'm in a safe space to say that. So it was really just a hilariously ironic turn of events that I am now a marketing director for a live streaming and video production software. And I'm thoroughly loving what I do on a regular basis. I never would have thought that I would have ended up here. But the journey getting here was sort of interesting, I guess, as I'm sure most people's careers are. I started initially in copywriting. I got from copywriting into copywriting for websites. And, the more that I expressed a passion and an interest in a capability in the world of technology, the more work was thrown at me in that space. and during that time, social media was becoming a huge part of what businesses were using in order to be able to get their copy and their content and their marketing out to customers and potential customers. So I sort of moved from copywriting into the social media marketing space. I did end up in publishing and worked in publishing for a while, both on the editorial side, which is where I had initially thought I wanted to be, and then on the marketing side of things. And then I ended up at Ecamm purely by accident. My husband, who many will laugh and say is less social than me, is actually in many ways much more extroverted than me. And when we first moved here to Amesbury, he signed up for a adult coding class at what was the beginning of Code and Circuit, which is
cool.
Ken's nonprofit coding school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the one and only adult class that Ken had ever done there. And so they became fast friends, and we became friends with Ken and his family pretty quickly when we first moved out this way. So, I'd always known that he had this company called Ecamm. I had no idea what it did. I kind of continued on in my world of marketing until eventually Ken was like, "Hey, we've really grown this product, and we're really passionate about it, and we've never done any kind of marketing. We're a team of 3. We never really thought that we needed marketing, but we're starting to feel like maybe having some advice on what we could do in the marketing space might make sense. Would you come and talk with us? Would you get to know Glenn and I and what we're trying to do here with Ecamm?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to do that." So I put together a marketing plan for them, and I started consulting and doing some like smaller projects with them. And it kind of morphed from there. It was, again, like really coincidental and kind of serendipitous that at that time I had been working at a really large company, and they did a ton of layoffs. And so I was sort of in a place where I wasn't sure what my next step was. And I sent a message over, and I was like, "Hey, I'm really enjoying doing contract work for you. Would you ever consider bringing me on full time?" And he was like, "Yeah, let's do that." Cool. So it moved really kind of quickly from being something that was just like, I'll help these two out, to this is really fun. And I think that there's huge potential. I had always dreamed of and wanted to work at a company where I could really make my mark. So I felt like it was, they literally had done no marketing whatsoever. So anything was sort of sink or swim on me. Not to say that they hadn't built, an incredible product, and there was already a community starting to grow around it well before I jumped on board. But it really gave me the opportunity to get to play and test and try things that at larger companies that I had been at just, really would have been difficult to see how much of an impact I had at this job. You can immediately see the impact that you make because every single thing that you're doing is highly visible. And because it hadn't been done before, it was, sink or swim. It was on me to see what would happen with marketing.
Well, it's certainly been a trajectory just in the time that I've been a member of the community, seeing how much it's grown from that point of view. So was there actually a Facebook community around it then as well? Or
there was. So I can't take credit for starting a Facebook group. Both the beta group and the Ecamm community existed. Mm-hmm. I want to say that there was maybe 40 or so people in the beta group and probably about 100 or so in the community.
Oh, wow.
And Ken and Glenn, to their credit, for being people who said that they did no marketing at all and they knew nothing about marketing, they were spending a lot of time in that group. They were listening to their customers that, as they continue to do, they just are so passionate about what they do that they were doing marketing. They were spending time really, working very closely and carefully with their customers to understand what the potential was, where the pain points were, what they could do to make improvements and to simplify people's lives. So yeah, I was able to have that level of starting point. The community did exist. So today, you said some wonderful things before I jumped on, but this has been a community process really from start to finish. And I can't say that where we are now is solely due to my efforts. It's been really collaborative to get us to where we are now.
One of the things you mentioned there was about them, not doing marketing, but them being caring in the community. That is something that does shine through at every level, really. That sort of level of, just yesterday there was the monthly Q&A with Ken and Glenn. So there's that level of accessibility. Yeah. And people often ask, what's the size of the development team behind Ecamm? Like to me, expecting that there's going to be some team of, massive office full of engineers that they're working away. And it is just Ken and Glenn. It's quite phenomenal. But that level of care that, from you and from them and from everybody, it's just so clearly evident. I talk about this sort of secret sauce that Ecamm's got from I have never seen a piece of software with such a engaged community around it and such a supportive community as well. I had Doc on the show the other day and was asking him about, his thoughts on, what's creating this. And it does come out of this fact that everyone is so caring for one another. And also, I think, is so sort of open and vulnerable to sort of exposing, what their weaknesses as well. And people can help them with those. And it's just really quite phenomenal. But I certainly see all of the time, the care and attention that you put into to growing this, sort of behind behind the scenes, and that there is a lot of work that goes on to actually make this. It's not just a case of set it up and it will grow like that because of the software.
Yeah, no,
there's a huge amount that goes on behind the scenes.
We have a fun time in our super secret Slack channel.
So from a live streaming point, so when you came in then, if having no experience of live video and that, what was the sort of progression from you personally, like coming in to, where now you're hosting the live streams, you're hosting the podcasts, and, all of the other stuff that you're doing online? What was your sort of personal journey of live streaming then in that sense?
Oh my gosh. If you're sitting out there and you're thinking like, oh, I don't know if I could get into live streaming, or I'm newer at live streaming and I don't feel super confident or perfect at it yet, I definitely walked in with zero skill set related to video. I come from a theater background, so I did theater all the way through school, all the way up to university. So I'm comfortable being on a stage, and I understand how to present, and generally how to convey information. But there is something absolutely terrifying about staring into a camera, hoping the technology doesn't go wrong, wondering, and if you're looking stupid, if you're going to say something ridiculous, if someone is going to call something out in the comments. And for me, one of the first projects that I took on at Ecamm, while I was still contracting before I had joined the team full time, was that Ken and Glenn had really they had made this effort to go out to a couple of events. So they had been to Social Media Marketing World for, I think, 2 years in a row, maybe 3, before I started. And in typical Ken and Glenn fashion, they had done it big. They had gone out with a huge booth and all their equipment, and they had, asked questions of folks and really got to know their customer base really well. And so they had made a lot of really great connections without thinking that they had. So, they had met Stephanie Liu and Larry Petrucci and Adrian Salisbury and a lot of the people who you still see now in our Ecamm community space. And one thing that all of those content creators and total extroverts and like enthusiastic video people had kept telling Ken and Glenn was that, you need to go live more often. Like, we'd love to do this for you. We'd love to, to host a show, to be on a show. We'd love to kind of get more video content into the space. And they were like, that's not our thing. We don't have time to do that. So the project that I had started with was talk to these influencers and, see what their ideas are and, and consider launching a show. So the first project was what we ended up calling Meet the Pros, which has now evolved into a show that I do fairly regularly called Meet the Family, where we interview just customers. But it started as a Meet the Pros interview, which was terrifying for me. The thought that I'm definitely a bit of a perfectionist. I don't like to look like I don't know what I'm doing. I need like a ton of time to be able to kind of work my way through things. And it's so public. And like, not only did I want to make a good impression to new bosses in a new role and a new job, but I didn't want to, make the company look ridiculous as well, and get on and not know what I was doing. So it was really scary. And I would say the first probably 4 or 5 broadcasts that I did, I looked like a deer caught in the headlights. Certainly lower quality cameras. I did a lot with just a built-in camera because that was what I was comfortable with when I first started. You'll see in that series, there are a lot where Ken or Glenn are hosting because they were like, oh, we can just do it today. That's fine. Like, they were very kind in helping. And Midori, who runs our customer support team, also took some of the shifts. Everyone wanted, I think, as a team, in addition to helping me out and making it easier for me, I think everyone wanted to have that experience and to really better understand what our customers were facing. Like, how scary is this? What are things that could happen? Having a good understanding of it. So so I went from nothing to kind of being thrown into it. Trial by fire, and I just kept pushing myself to do it. And then, of course, I'm in a luxury position where I was interviewing people who are phenomenal at this. They're coaches, they're experts. They've been doing video for years. I co-host a show with Doc Rock, who has decades of experience in radio and television and video production and live streaming. So it made it easy for me to just be the the person just asking a question. It was okay for me to look dumb because I could say like, oh, I don't really know how to do this. Can you, the expert that I have on camera with me, walk me through these steps or, help me understand this better? And that made me more comfortable. And the more people that showed up and were encouraging and supportive in the comments, the more comfortable I got and the more I saw the value in that and tried to, as much as I could, also be that person in the comments for some of our customers, for some of our experts, because it makes a huge, huge difference when you see someone say like, oh, I'm so excited to see you today. Or like, I really got value out of what you said last time. Or, I think you look great today. It's the magic of live. And it really does remind you, oh, it's not about me. It doesn't matter how I look or if my camera isn't the top most quality or if my lighting is off today. It matters the value that I'm bringing to people and how I'm able to help them grow their businesses, which I mean, really is my entire role in my day-to-day.
Well, you mentioned a couple of things there. First of all, that's my little secret trick about this podcast is I get on people who've got awesome live streaming sets. And so it's the audio and video is always, I always know is going to be good. It's not like interviewing anyone else. So, but also you mentioned about your background in performing. And I think that in the Ecamm community, one of the things I love is that everyone's got their own sort of unique background that they're bringing that adds something to the, what they're doing on camera. But there is also another thing there that you mentioned about, it's this worry that the tech is going to let you down. And it's like, I've done public speaking before, but when you do things like that on a stage, you just sort of you're standing on a stage and talking. Whereas when you're doing it as live streaming, you've also got to then be the lighting guy, the camera guy, the sound guy, the switching scenes and all that kind of stuff. So there is it's almost like multitasking to the limit, really, where you're doing all of these other things. And that's the little bit that I think people have to get over. But it's interesting to see that, the skills that you've bought and that do sort of translate over once we've figured out the tech and what to press.
Yeah. I mean, I was also in a space too which is probably different than many people in that if you're doing let's say a craft show on a regular basis, you could set up your camera and your lights and whatever. And the crafting audience that's watching you isn't probably going to care as much as the video enthusiasts and live streamers that are watching me, right? So like all the questions that are coming through and still today I have to deal with on a regular basis is always, no matter what my topic is, it's like, oh, I'm so happy to be here today to listen to you talk about podcasting, Katie. What lights are you using? What camera are you using? And, I can only know so much because in the end, we hired Doc in many ways to help answer some of those questions. My skill set is in, marketing, content marketing, community building. It's not like if I spent all of my time really understanding every single camera out there, every single light out there, I'm not going to be able to help people in the way that I want to be able to. So I sometimes have to let that go where I'm like, okay, you know what? Like if I don't remember what camera I'm using or I look around and, someone else has set some of this stuff up, I'm less bothered by that today than I probably used to be. So I think sometimes we can let the tech completely get in the way of just the reason why you're creating the content or, your passion and trying to get it out there.
Yeah, that's the reason why you have the Ecamm kit list. Just drop the link into that and go and check it out. It's all listed over here.
Well, Doc built all of this. I don't know. So happy to answer questions about podcasting. Yeah.
I just want to take a moment to talk about Ecamm Live. This is the live production Mac software that we're using to live stream and record this podcast. In my opinion, it is the best live streaming and recording software on the market today. So what exactly does it do? Well, essentially, it allows you to control the content that you're including in your video, be it a live stream or a recorded video. And you do this by building out different scenes that contain the content that you want to show. This content may be a feed from your camera or indeed multiple cameras, or you may be sharing a screen, which is what I do a lot of in my tutorial style videos that I make for my Take One Tech YouTube channel. You can share the screen from a second computer or maybe even a gaming console if you are a live streaming gamer. And just as we are doing in this podcast, you can also bring in guests using Ecamm Live's built-in interview mode, where guests can join from a browser, and you can then incorporate their video and audio into your production. Finally, you can add all kinds of additional graphical and animated overlay elements and even movies to really add a level of branded professionalism that would be hard to achieve in any other way. The real magic happens though when you hit that record or go live button, because then you are able to seamlessly switch back and forth between all of the scenes that you've created. And indeed, this is how all of the videos have been created for my Take One Tech YouTube channel. And the reason it's called Take One Tech, by the way, is because all of the videos are made in one take with no edits. I just hit record, make the video, and as soon as I hit the end recording button, the file is there and ready to be uploaded straight to YouTube. What I love about Ecamm is not just the ease of use that it has when compared to other live streaming software, but also the greater flexibility it gives in terms of layouts and designs that you can create for your shows when compared to some of the hardware streaming solutions. And one thing that makes Ecamm great specifically for podcasts is the fact that it has the ability to record isolated audio tracks. So once we finish recording this podcast, I'll have a separate audio file for me, my guests, and any other audio tracks that have been a part of the recording. That makes the editing and repurposing of the content for the podcast so much more streamlined. It does have another little trick up its sleeve though, and that is its virtual camera feature. This allows you to take the video output from Ecamm Live straight into communication apps like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Discord, and so on. This means that rather than just appearing in Zoom meetings with a regular camera feed, you can now show up with all of the amazing production values that Ecamm Live gives you and deliver that straight into your Zoom meeting. And trust me, when you rock up to a Zoom meeting with Ecamm, the other participants will be truly amazed. So whether for live streaming, recorded video content, or to level up your Zoom game, I highly recommend you give Ecamm Live a go. You can get a free trial by going to takeonetech.io/Ecamm. That's ECAMM. takeonetech.io/Ecamm. And of course, you can find a link to that in the show notes as well. You will certainly not regret giving it a go. Now let's get back to the show. Coming back to the sort of marketing side of it, and I just want to understand a little bit more about like your whole concept when it comes to all of the stuff that you do in the Ecamm community, because there's a lot of companies will use events as a way to, you know, just to promote their own product. And if we think about leap into podcasting, I don't really know that Ecamm was particularly mentioned much. It did come across more so as being, it is an event for the actual community itself. It never came across as, oh, this is an event just to promote Ecamm. Yeah. It is, everything comes across that way though, as it is just genuinely there to help the community. I'd love to get your sort of insight and thought process behind, you know, that sort of aspect of it and the things that you do for Ecamm, for the community.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that comes from again, kind of goes back to a copywriting, social media, SEO background. So I'm a big believer that if you can put content out in front of people intentionally, that is helping them, that's solving a pain point or making them look or sound or feel great, they'll research the information about your business. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, if you have solved something for them and you have made, you know, something easier for them, you are top, as Stephanie is always saying, our friend Stephanie Liu, you are top of mind and tip of tongue, right? Mm-hmm. You're the person that they trust. You have gone above and beyond to do something for them. So that has always been my marketing strategy at every job that I've been at. It's certainly what we do at Ecamm. If I can make people feel confident on camera and look great and sound great and have people saying, how are you doing that? Then we've built up an entire, you know, what now is called the Ecamm fam of people who feel awesome, so awesome that they want to let absolutely everyone know how they're doing it. And if they started off by feeling awesome on OBS or StreamYard or, you know, any other software, great, you know, but they know who we are. And when they eventually feel like they want to get a Mac or they want to take the next step, or they spend so much time surrounded by all of our customers who are like, you know, I'm doing this with Ecamm, they'll make a decision to come over, or they won't, but they'll know how kind and giving and supportive our community is. And that will convert someone else. So I would rather follow Doc Rock's philosophy of helping millions of people than selling at millions of people. In the end, I think it's going to be more beneficial for us financially than anything else we could do.
Well, it certainly does show in just the growth. I mean, you mentioned about when you came in, there was 100 or so members of the Facebook group, and then recently passed 20,000, was it? So it's certainly grown in in size from that point of view. And I mentioned as well with
Yeah.
I don't know if it was with Doc or maybe Keith Pelzer was talking about this, and I think one of the things that makes the sort of the bond so strong in the Ecamm community is this fact that it's such a huge enabler, this software, that it's not just about live streaming. I mean, it can transform your Zoom calls. It's for live video. All the videos on my channel are just in one take, and I would not have made anywhere near as many videos on my YouTube channel as it were it not for the software. And I think there's this realization and joy that comes out of realizing how simple it is to do all of this stuff. That's what actually helps to bring this, everyone closer together as well. That we're all just kind of in awe of what the software allows us to create. If you see what I mean.
Yeah,
it's a real sort of enabler.
Yeah, it definitely is an enabler. And the cool thing about it, and again, I wish I could take credit for it, but part of it is just the magic of the software because it's so visual, right? Like you are creating video that you're either live streaming or putting out there in some way. Other people are seeing it. If you do it well, people are going to wonder, especially in a Zoom call is a great example of that. If you show up in a Zoom call with a better quality camera, better audio, your logo on the bottom, even like simple things that Ecamm can do, people inevitably are like, what? Like it stands out. It would be as if you walked into a room wearing a complete suit and everyone else was in t-shirts and jeans, right? It would, you would stand out. And so I think that makes it, easier for us to really have this strategy of, community first, affiliates first, referral first, because our creators are out there and they're creating. So if we double down and support them in what they're doing and we continue to, teach them how to be their best and give them all of the resources that they need and make it as easy and effective and awesome as possible, their videos get better. The better their videos get, the more people that are watching their videos, the more people are asking how they're doing it. So I mean, it's somewhat selfish, but I think it works really well in this particular business because of how visual it is. And I think the community works really well because it is really scary. And so I will say, and I experienced this when I first started, I think almost everyone, maybe not Doc, but I think almost everyone when they first start off, opens up the software and is like, now what? I don't know, like what, I've opened it up. I've like gotten as far as dragging in some graphics and kind of played around with it. But that pushing record for the first time or that going live for the first time, you're like, I don't want to test publicly, like out where people can see, there's this concept of, in all of our marketing, as you're deciding whether or not you want to sign up or give Ecamm a try, we have this space where it's like totally fine for you to pop up and live stream in there and say like, hey, I'm new to this and I'm just trying and you'll be able to get a response, but there's no one in there that's going to be like, oh, eye roll. This person is coming in to practice because everyone has been there. Everyone has had that feeling where you're like, where do I practice? How do I practice? Like, I want to see what it's like to be live, but I don't want to be live in front of my people. Because what if I screw up or what if I look dumb or what, all of the different, and maybe that's not everyone. Maybe I'm exaggerating.
I think that's a very common feeling.
But I think it's a common thing.
For sure. Yeah.
So that's certainly how it started in thinking through like, what is really the benefit of this Facebook group? The benefit of this Facebook group is that everyone is trying to find a safe space to be able to ask their questions and practice and figure out the recommendations and see what other people are creating so that they can get ideas for their own business. So let's double down on that and make it as safe and friendly and encouraging a space as possible. And the more we got the more we were able to kind of win over some people to get them to stop hiding and show more of what was going on in their studio, the more we were like, oh, great, you're showing what's in your studio. Do you want to take over the community for the week? Oh, great, you're doing it. Like, here's a t-shirt, the more that you celebrated that and made people excited about that, the more they wanted to give because then they felt awesome. Someone was noticing what they were doing, other people were jumping on and giving advice. So you sort of have to find the people who are like just sharing enough that they're kind of dipping their toe in and make them feel really awesome about dipping their toe in because they're likely to want to share a little bit more. And it's those people that are going to bring everyone up. And, and you were certainly one of those people, Doc, all of our moderators, India does a really fantastic job of that. Certainly any of the bigger content creators, Adrian certainly is another one. So there are people who wanted to share, and we just really celebrated that. And then the more they shared, the more questions we saw coming through, and we're like, oh, turns out people have a lot of questions about microphones. Like, let's find some microphone experts and make them feel really special and answer everyone's questions by making them feel special and getting everyone's questions answered. And then we'll all be better at microphones. And, so it's kind of just spending a lot of time there, which sometimes feels like I'm just sitting on Facebook, not working, but I try to read as many of the posts as I can and really hear like what are the trends, what are people really struggling with, or what are people really excited about, or what is the community talking about. And it's those things that get built into challenges and workshops and additional things that well, maybe they're not as much about Ecamm, but they're a way to showcase a cool partner or a cool tool that makes the partner feel really special, and and then benefits us because then they tell their whole customer base about how nice and awesome Ecamm is. Like there's it still comes back to us, and it still helps people create video better, which is what we're trying to do. So
yeah, it's all the ways that people would naturally be using Ecamm. So like you had the whole Zoom workshop, the week that you did on Prezi, and various other different things like that are all these sort of companion services and companion apps that work so well. I also love that there's been this sort of not migration, but this addition of the Discord community as well, because Discord's such a great place to have I would say a more searchable resource. So, being able to have like threaded conversations and stuff like that, it really allows people to dive into just the specific areas that they're interested in. So that's been a really great addition to see recently as well.
Yeah. I'm learning a lot. I certainly have never been a Discord person, I guess, or like I've known of it, but I've never really used it a lot. So I learn new things every day, or often. So I apologize if you're on our Discord and you've like sent me notes. I feel like I open it up and then I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't answer this message. Okay, so I'm getting better at it.
Yeah, I'm still definitely learning with Discord. I always had this vision of it being a thing for gamers. That was just all I had in my head. And then it was only when Keely turned me onto it and said, you really should just take a little look. And she kept saying that quietly in my ear for sort of 3 months, and then eventually did and thought like, oh, this is why we need to be here.
But you're right. It is much easier to search. And that has been a huge pain point in the Facebook group, is that, no matter how hard we try, there are only so many spaces for us to be able to put content. So as new people are joining the group, they're like, well, when do you do shows, or where are the training videos, or, how do I reach support, or all these questions come up over and over again. And, we've tried a number of ways to, we've pinned videos, or we've like added to the resources section, or done all these different things, but Facebook is constantly moving all of that around. So Discord certainly is a nice space where it feels as though we have a lot more control. And you're right, it feels way easier to be able to share content and share information, simple features that just really go a long way to make the whole thing easier for everyone. The trick is going to be trying to like migrate people over from Facebook, or in our mind, we're like, fine, that's fine. People can be where they want to be, but it is definitely easier on Discord. So
I always feel with Facebook, in any group or even just in your general feed, you're sort of turning up and saying, right, what does Facebook think that I want to see today? Whereas on Discord, it's all categorized, and
exactly.
I'm all for hierarchical file structures and things like that. So I'm like, this is speaking my language.
Yeah, for sure.
So in terms of, we talked about, people using, Ecamm and live streaming in their business from a marketing point of view. How what's your sort of thoughts on that? Advice that you would give people to the way to approach live video or video in general as a marketing tool?
Yeah, it's been a big focus for us this year, really kind of thinking that through, particularly for content marketers. I don't mean to keep coming back to them, but I feel like people who are in that space where they're thinking about like multiple forms of content. So they're really thinking about like the texts on their website, their social channels and their social plans, their blog articles, their PDFs, all these different places. We've really been trying to get people to think about that differently, and think about how, rather than saying like, okay, well, I'm already doing all of this stuff and it's taking me all of this time, and I'm having to, I have all these different team members who are building out all these different things according to the, all of our content topics and our huge content calendar for the year. And so video then becomes one of those things where they're like, yeah, I would love to do that. Everyone keeps telling me to do video. Everyone keeps telling me to do live video. I don't have the resources for that. I don't have the time for that. I can't learn anything new. I have all this other content I need to create. if you can change your perspective and your workflow and your thinking about that, and you can start with live video or even recorded video, you can build a ton of those content pieces from video. And then video then is not something that you're have to pay extra for or spend more time or hire additional team members for. It's central to your content marketing plan, and you can use it across multiple platforms because all of them are begging you for it. Every platform is saying, we need to go video first, or we need to have vertical video. We need to have these shorter video clips. Don't even bother sharing images anymore. So I think trying to get people to think about that a little bit differently has been a big focus for us. But then it comes down to, the next question, once you kind of convince them of the value of it, is like, what do I talk about? what's my content that I have to share, that I'm wanting to share? And depending on what your business is, there's always something that you can share, but it is in that authentic, slightly raw, personal space where I think if you can get a little bit vulnerable with your business, you can really find, your space there. So for us, it was, let's put Ken and Glenn monthly in front of the camera. They don't really want to be on the camera monthly. That's not something that they really want to do. But every time that they do it, they immediately hear their customers' questions. Mm-hmm. They're using the app, so they're able to see immediately, weird glitches and things that may be going wrong in the beta that they're using. I think, regardless of what your business is, getting on and answering people's questions, or, doing a tour behind the scenes of your office space, or thinking through a product launch, or for a lot of people, it's really thinking through a podcast because that concept makes sense to them. They understand that it's more personalized and conversational. So maybe it's like, you have your team and you do a podcast where you're interviewing others in your field, like similar to what you're doing, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunity, but I think it's getting people to think about their workflow differently. And then once you've got them there, then it's like, what kind of content do you want to create, and how can you think about that content more than just a video, so that you're starting with video, but you're really setting yourself up for success for a really efficient workflow. So you're not spending a ton of time thinking through all these different pieces of content you're creating. It makes sense because it's all starting in the same spot. It has the same topic, and you can build it out off of that, or build it from that initial piece.
Mm-hmm. And with tools like Descript, where you can just drop a video in and get a full transcript, then starting with the live video first, and then taking all of the copy out of that is an awesome little bit of software. You mentioned there about Ken and Glenn doing the monthly Q&A, and this whole idea of being vulnerable. It does give you, I know that as a user, then seeing those monthly Q&As, you do then feel that you've got this connection, and if there's anything that you want as a new feature or something like that, you've got the understanding that there's these two guys there who are doing what they're doing their best, and they're sharing all of the challenges that they're facing, in the ongoing development, new features that they want to add in, and you do have that sort of connection there that just you would not have if it was just Ecamm as a logo and a product.
A faceless, exactly. And you feel, the really amazing thing about live video that makes it both terrifying and awesome is that it does have that level of vulnerability. You are putting yourself out there, your personality, your, things that may go wrong, all of your feelings and insecurities and the things that you're proud of are out there, and people can immediately give you feedback, which can be scary if you have people that, come at you and say, things that might make you feel uncomfortable or put you off. But it can be awesome because you're going to get that direct feedback. So you could get on for your first live show and say, hey, I'm Katie. I'm a marketing professional at Ecamm. Like, gosh, we really want to be doing video, but we're not exactly sure, what would be most valuable to you. Mm-hmm. What do you want to hear from us? And see what kinds of, and you'll get that immediate feedback. People will tell you it has now become much more of an expectation that consumers want to have some kind of relationship with the products and services and the people that they are buying from. They want to know who you are. They want to know, where you're working from, what sorts of things are exciting you, where your challenges are, what does your space look like, who's your team, all of it. And the more that you're willing to be vulnerable and give them at least some of that, the more they feel connected to your company, and the more, they're there to support you and cheer you on. yeah, they might be frustrated with you time to time when you do things that maybe they don't agree with, but you'll have that direct path. You'll be able to deal with that directly. It's not like it'll be something that you won't be able to solve. So I think trying to think through what that content is, it can be hard, but it, really getting to know who your target market is or who your existing customer base is the hardest part. And then once you do, just keep asking them, just keep spending time with them and getting to know them better. And you'll get to a point where the content part of it will be a lot easier. We're so used to, as marketers, kind of hiding behind our campaigns and our calendars and our ads and all of it. And I think putting ourselves out there a little bit more is a great way to network and learn and hear what your customers want from you.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned there about, some people hiding behind campaigns and things like that. I think there's something similar there with the difference between live video and recorded video content. So people may be making recorded content, but if it is, heavily edited, or you're not going to know basically as the viewer how edited it has been. And there's something about seeing somebody on a live stream that that they can't really hide behind too much. If something goes wrong on the live stream, you're going to see how they react to it, and it is a very sort of telling as to I think you get to have a much deeper understanding of somebody's character just to be able to see them, how they are on live. Like coming back to Ken and Glenn, like when somebody asks a question and then they stop to think about it, you see how they are actually reacting in real time to that. So it gives it's such a deeper connection.
People want to spend time with other people. So, this is why podcasting, for example, is so popular, and live streaming kind of sits right there next to it, is that there's something really intimate about, spending the time and putting someone into your ears and sitting there and listening to them, and you're familiar with their voice, what they look like. If you're able to be consistent and get out in front of them, that is much, much more valuable than an ad that you're going to run, even if it's brilliantly produced and it evokes a ton of feeling and, motivates people to do something. They might take action on that once, but the people who are there week after week after week and who know you intimately and feel like they're friends with you and feel like, they know you really, people feel like they know Ken and Glenn, even people who have never met them, because they've spent an hour a month just laughing and being silly and answering questions. And you really get to know their personality, down the road. Like, that's going to be easier to defend, continuing to subscribe if times get tight and, and they're having to cut back on things, or recommending it to someone else. They have a deeper connection with us as a business than, another business that's not doing that, that's just running ads. They might be familiar with that company, but they don't know the people, and they don't know, where the company is at or what features they're working on, or any, it's just a different relationship.
And talking there about sort of connecting with the community, how about the sort of events side of things? I know you're flying off tomorrow to go to speak at an event, and there's been so many events just in the past few months, actual physical in-person events. But then obviously we've had the Leap event just recently, and then I know that you're sponsoring a number of other virtual events as well. How do you approach that from the sort of, the big conferences, the virtual events, and what's your sort of approach to those?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. This year we took on going to a lot of events, probably more than we should have, if we're friends and being honest here with each other. But really the goal with it was to try to get out in front of some audiences who don't know who we are. So, if we were to have gone to the Vid Summit or VidCon or, some of these Video Marketing World, or I guess technically we were physically at Social Media Marketing World, although we didn't exhibit this year. But going to some of those events where it's like only all of our customers is super fun for us. But then we're missing an opportunity to get in front of people who genuinely need our software, who are struggling with how they look, and they're trying to grow their business. They're trying to do these webinars. Someone's told them they should do live streaming or start a podcast or, create course content and videos, and they just don't know how to get started. So for us, we tried to choose and curate events where, we would be somewhat unexpected being there. People would be like, who are you? What is that? Like, what is this?
Right.
And, and come at it from a way that is, very us. So, we went with generally a fairly big booth design with like a giant screen and, behind us so that people could see what the experience is like to be on camera. And, folks that were walking by, we were like, come into our studio space, sit here, see what you can look like on camera, see the difference, see how amazing you can look here on camera, and then let us show you how easy it is. So I think it was great from a branding perspective. We've met, a ton of people. It was also fun because, inevitably, as we're in different cities, we're also still doing smaller meetups or hanging out with other customers that are in that area. So it was a little bit selfishly fun and getting to spend time with everyone. But it was just a good opportunity to be in front of some different markets that we haven't been with before and to understand some of those audiences a little bit better.
That thing you mentioned there about having people come and just try it out. I mean, I have calls with people that are something unrelated to Ecamm, and then it'll be on Zoom and they say, how are you doing what you're doing? And all you need to say to me is, have you got 5 minutes? And then go into like live demo mode and just show them like how easy it is to sort of drag and drop things and do this. And inevitably there's that like moment where their mind's just blown by like, oh, this is actually really, really simple. So getting out there to actually show people in person at a booth I can see how that has a sort of big impact.
Yeah. Well, it's really, the software is really visual. It's not like tangible. It's not something that you can easily understand if you don't see it. And that, a lot of people who aren't in the YouTube or content creation space, they live in a world of Zoom and Google Meets and Microsoft Teams and all those places. So for them, they're just like, what is this is this like a Zoom thing? Like what is this that you're doing?
How do I enable this feature in Zoom?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, they can, not that they feel overwhelmed by it, but it feels like one other thing that they need to invest in. A lot of these businesses have huge, suites of software that they're using on a regular basis. So to get in front of them and just show them how easy it can be and to give them the opportunity to actually get their hands on some of the tech, that's also like, it's one thing to invest in the software and then you get it, but it's then immediately you're like, okay, well, what kind of camera do I need to have? What kind of lights? So having kind of a mini studio space really also lets people test out like what their space could be like and get to ask questions about the actual gear as well as the software itself.
There's another couple of things you mentioned there. So one of them was about earlier you were talking about how visually you can look on Ecamm. It is possible to look the same with other software because I tried other software before, but there's something quite special about the ease with which you can do it in Ecamm.
Yeah.
I know that I pulled out my last few remaining hairs using other pieces of software. And and it was only when I came over to Ecamm that I was like, I always liken it a little bit to when I used to use a PC and then I moved over to a Mac sort of 16, 18 years ago, whatever it was now. And there was that moment of thinking like, I've been struggling all this time on a PC and there was this whole other way that I could have done it. And that's what like Ecamm's been like with this whole sort of thing of live streaming and video production, was just that there is this sort of easier way of doing it. But the other thing you mentioned there was about like the gear that people use to do it. And I was talking with Alicio, so I had Alicio Way on a while ago, and he was talking about there was one company that was doing a live stream production for a client of his, and then they couldn't make it, so he stepped in to sort of help out to do it.
Awesome.
And whilst they were turning up with like a van full of gear, to put on this live stream, he just turned up with a bag with a few cameras in it and his computer, and the fact that it is so easy to do with very limited equipment, you don't need to invest a huge amount in the equipment, is just another thing that is quite revolutionary when you discover it.
I know. And it's so hard to convince people of that. I feel like, I don't know what it is about people that sign up for Ecamm, but I'm like, you don't need a lot. Like, honestly, when I first started working at the company and live streaming, I was using my built-in microphone, my headphones, like very, very simple stuff. We had other gear, but I was working my way up to understanding it and trying to figure out all of it. And my videos still looked good. Yeah. There was but it's, immediately, and part of that probably is our community. So maybe that's like the evil flip side of our community is that, people see what's possible and they're like, wait, well, I don't just want to create a video. I want to create like, what is Alec doing? I want to create that exact video, those exact settings, those, that lighting. And so it is kind of the downside of everything being so visual is that immediately, it becomes, Doc now calls it gear acquisition syndrome or gas, where you're like, I need that. I need that. What is that? I need that. Yeah. It can be crippling though. It can be, like you can certainly get all of the gear and then still default back down to what's easier, or not make anything because you're like, well, I got to get it positioned correctly and I need to learn how to use it before I can start it. It can be a bit of a crutch in that way.
I think that's the thing. Just like, it's fine to have gas and aspire to these other things and have them on your wish list, but as long as it doesn't actually stop you from getting out there and doing it in the first place. And Ecamm does make it really easy to sort of tweak whatever you've got in any case. So if you are using the built-in camera, then we can adjust the camera settings and all that kind of stuff to make it look better with all of that stuff. Perhaps this is a good point then to segue into gear, since we're talking about it.
Let's
I always like to have a look at studio spaces. So I've got a couple of pictures that you've got. So if you're listening on the audio, then I've left a link to the YouTube video of the replay of this in the description. So if you want to come and check out the setup, but perhaps you can just sort of talk us through what you're using at the moment. And bear in mind that all of this is listed in the description, and I've also linked to the Ecamm gear list as well. So if there's anything missed off, don't worry. It's all there in that list.
Oh gosh, full disclosure, I am one of those lucky people that has a team that helps me coordinate this. And I was saying to Alec before we jumped on that my team also moves everything around and changes everything on me. So I may misspeak in what we actually have in the studio space. But so I am on a MacBook Pro M1, one of the newer MacBook Pros. And I mean, I'm a laptop person. So for me, that makes sense. I'm always on the move. And then I have an Anchor hub. Hang on, let's see here. A Thunderbolt dock, a Thunderbolt 3 dock that is connecting all of the different devices I have. See, I'm not overly techie, but Doc would say otherwise. I am looking into a Sony a6400 camera, and it's got a Sigma 16mm lens on it. I have a Rodecaster Pro 1. I haven't updated to the 2 yet. And that is powering my microphone, which is a Shure MV7. It's connected right now by XLR cable, but you can connect it with a USB cable if you want to be a little bit simpler. It's one of my favorite things about this microphone is that once I'm done this, I plan to throw it in my bag and bring it with me to the UK, but I'm just going to plug in with USB because that'll be much easier while I'm on the road than lugging my Rodecaster Pro with me. And the sound will still be pretty awesome. So I'm not too concerned about it.
It's such an awesome feature. I mean, I bought this microphone initially because I wanted that sort of dual role so I could use it over USB to begin with, but then have it sort of future-proofed to be able to use it with XLR.
Exactly. All right, here, I got to remember what NAN lights I have. So I have NAN lights. I just installed the app. So
cool.
I can, let me see if I can, let's see. Yeah, there, I see one goes down and then one goes on. So I can control my light. So this one here that I was just turning on and off is a Forza 60B NAN light. Mm-hmm. And this one over here is the FS150, according to the app, also a NAN light. They're both gigantic. They're probably way bigger than I actually need. But at Ecamm, we have a bit of a like go big or go home kind of mentality towards this. So part of it is just like, it looks cool. So why not, right? And same thing with as you can see in this photo, we have some NAN lights that are sitting on the floor. Actually, I have one slightly elevated behind me now, but you can control the color on them. So right now they're blue. Often they're blue, but you can make them purple or orange or red for Halloween or who knows what crazy colors, or do a bunch of cool settings. And then I just have a simple bookcase that I think I even got on Amazon that I collect knickknacks and fun things by.
I like that in this shot that we got here, we've just got the the soft box of the NAN light just sort of creeping in. Yeah. It looks like it's about to eclipse the studio. It's quite large.
It's huge. It is the size of the sun. It's way bigger than it needs to be. But and actually in that shot, so see, this is a great example of it. Like this studio space is always changing around, whether it's my fault or someone else's. So the square light that was in the last shot is actually a Dasny light, and that's off to the side. I have a NAN light that is bigger that has replaced it. Although, we have the extra one if we wanted to set up an additional spot. But yeah, and then in this picture here, I often use, that's like actually my old iPhone. I think that's a 6. It's an older iPhone. And I have that just sitting here around in the office with like a fairly cheap little tripod that I can just use with camo. And that lets me, if I wanted to like show something, I actually don't even have it in front of me now, but I could show something, behind me, or if, the other day, Ken and Glenn were sitting on the couch while I was doing an interview. So I pointed it at them while we were having some tech issues so that we could watch them work while we were waiting for a guest to jump back on. So yeah, it gives me a little bit of flexibility if I wanted to be able to demonstrate something or show something. It's just an additional fun camera to use.
I have a 6 lying around for just that purpose.
There you go, right? Yeah. The camera's actually pretty good on it. I can't complain.
Yeah, and I use one for my top-down shot as well. It's a good way to recycle old cameras is just get camo on it. And camo now is doing Wi-Fi. They just had an update recently. So that's pretty cool as well. One less wire to have in the studio.
Let's see what else I have. I have a big red button. I have a giant red button that I can press to make fun sounds. That's totally for fun. There's no benefit to it. And then I have a Stream Deck. This office only has it's not the biggest one, but I like my Stream Deck. Our other office has the larger Stream Deck and then the Loop Deck, which you know about. I don't know if I have ever used a Loop Deck in a stream. I've played around with it, but I tend to be, I have all this stuff and I almost never I use the Stream Deck here or there, but probably not as often as I could or should.
Right.
And everything else generally is if no one moves, it is set where it needs to be so I can just walk in quickly and go. Because I'm almost entirely always running late or in a conversation and I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta get going. So having it where I can just duck in and sit down makes it easy.
I've got to say the Stream Deck, that was one thing that was another revelation to me. When I started my YouTube channel, it was going to be about the tools that I use in business. So Take One Tech was about software and things like that I use on my computer. I wasn't actually intending 80% of my videos to either be Ecamm or Stream Deck, but they were just the tools.
Or Ecamm and Stream Deck.
Yeah, exactly. They'd just been such a revelation. But Stream Deck as well has been one of those ones that I obviously got it as a way to switch scenes in Ecamm and for live streaming.
Yeah.
But it's just become my primary productivity tool. It's so good for outside of just live streaming. A bit like really Ecamm was something for recording videos, and then that's led into. Yep. All the Zoom stuff and the all that kind of thing as well. So
it's on my list. I have notes both from your stuff and then India's and a bunch of other. I have all these detailed notes of what I would like to do with the Stream Deck, and I just haven't sat down and actually worked my way through it. It is embarrassingly basic right now. I think right now it just has previous scene, next scene, pause, record. It's got next to nothing on it. Yeah.
One other thing that I always ask is for a book recommendation, and I know that you'd mentioned Pat Flynn's Superfans book, so perhaps you could talk a little bit about that and what you got out of it and how that relates to live streaming.
My goodness, I mean, Pat, I feel lately he's been my go-to reference for when these kinds of questions pop up, but I like Superfans because it's written very conversationally, and Pat is so just authentically himself, even though he is a huge player. I mean, he's got not one but 2 huge YouTube channels and just an amazing membership and community himself, and he's just a really big advocate in really spending the time to foster and grow those relationships and to really develop super fans. So it's not something that happens overnight. It's, it's time that you spend with them. He's really intentional about what he does. So the book is just an interesting read, even if you do not plan to build a community or you're not in the world of marketing. And just about the power of, I feel especially in the video space, we're always I want to get to 1 million subscribers. I want to get to 1 million views. I want to make all this money with everything I'm doing. And Pat, who is has millions of views, he's a really big believer in 100, get to 100 people who think you're awesome. And you love spending time with you and you love spending time with them and they are your super fans. That's way more valuable than millions of followers who couldn't tell you, anything about you or your business or what you're doing. So spend the time and foster those relationships because, those 10, 20, 50, 100 people, those are the people that are going to make the impact and the difference. And spending that time is never wasted. And so it was just a really fantastic book. It helped a lot as we were thinking through what we want to do with the Ecamm community. Pat is certainly someone we are constantly, chatting with and working with and seeking advice from. So it's a great read. And it's a super easy read too. I think it took me maybe a day. It was flew through that one. So
It's a great message, though, that is. I mean, the whole thing about, people chasing numbers and, subscriber numbers and things like that. And I know certainly from, what I've just done with Take One Tech that the the YouTube ad revenue is still only sort of trickling in, but what it's been able to generate through meaningful relationships through live streaming and all the content has been sort of far outweighed that. So I think people when they first get into it, they do have these visions of these hundreds of thousands and millions of subscriber numbers that are not realistic at any for most normal people, certainly not in any short time frame. And I'm not sure quite how long Pat's been going at it, but for sure it wasn't an overnight thing. It's taken a lot of sort of hard work and effort on his part.
Yeah, he's got, it still blows my mind. So sneak info on Pat if you don't know him. He has an entire business called Smart Passive Income that is just a wonderful community to spend time in and YouTube channel to watch. But during the pandemic, he started doing live streaming every single day. He did live streaming every day for a year. He jumped in and started using Ecamm, and we started kind of watching what he was doing. And like many of us, certainly many of us that are parents, he was home, he has kids. And so he started doing Pokemon. He loves, he's a collector, and so he started this whole Pokemon channel with his kids. And that channel now has skyrocketed. It's nearing the same amount of, enthusiastic fans and views and subscriber counts as his very successful full-time great business that he has built. So again, just really doubling down on what you're passionate about, really understanding who your audience is and what they want, and spending time with them. He was able to translate that not just in his actual day-to-day business, but even in just something that started as a way to spend time with his kids and do something fun that he really enjoyed. So I think, we can all surprise ourselves by getting to know people and spending time networking and hearing people's stories and pain points and thinking through how we can help.
That seems like a great bit of advice to wrap it up on, because we're close to the top of the hour and I want to be conscious of your time, since you've got some packing to do, ready for your trip.
I have some packing to do.
Yeah. I've left links to all the places you can connect with Katie in the show notes, in the description as well. And I just want to say thanks again for all that you do in the community, and thanks obviously for coming on today. But it's just been such an enabler for me, and a big part of that has been the supportive community that I know you've played a huge part in building. I know there are one or two other people involved in it, but you've got to take some credit. Allow me to give you the credit for all that you do.
All right.
To actually,
all right, thank you.
to help us all out.
Well, it's by far my favorite feature, as we joke, and the main key reasons why I feel as confident as I do coming on camera and hosting some of these shows and being in front of people are community members and the community who show up every single time and cheer me on and or always have a smile or an encouraging thing to say, and they find me no matter where I am, which is so I am humbled and slightly flabbergasted that people are able to do that. And it's something that, seeing it, I hope that I can pay it forward and do the same for others, because it has made a huge difference in my life, professionally as well as personally. So it's a great space. So whether you're an Ecamm person or not, come hang out and just get to know us a little bit better, because it is really a fun space to just be safe and have fun in.
Do you know what? I need to just mention that, actually highlight that there are people in the Ecamm community that are not Ecamm users as well. So there are people that come and do that. And, the people that have been there for a while, looking and learning and watching. And then, at some point they'll drop a message and say, oh, finally, signed up to Ecamm, and it's like, oh, great. So it's definitely
it's usually I finally bought myself a Mac. It's usually we have a few friends who are PC people, and they're like, well, I'm PC person, and I'm like, that's fine, you can hang out with us. And they're like,
you'll come around eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Eventually someone will buy you a Mac and you'll get around to it. Yeah. So no, everyone welcome. We are an inclusive community. Everyone is welcome in our space.
Well, thanks once again, Katie. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you, and thanks again for coming on and for all that you do.
Of course. Thank you so much. This has been fun.
Cheers. We'll have a little chat afterwards. Let me just finally say thank you to everyone for tuning in and watching. If you have been listening on the podcast, then you may want to go and check out the video of this recording. You can find that over on the YouTube channel, Take One Tech, and I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. If you'd like to connect with me, you can check out the show notes and go to the website, Take One Tech. Obviously, I've already mentioned you can find all of Katie's links, all the places that you can connect there, and I always mention Ecamm in every episode anyway, so you already know where to find that. See you next time with another great guest and another great conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. I'll see you next time.